Father Vogel, we continue our series on St. Jean-Baptiste de la Salle's Meditations in Time of Retreat for teachers. We are in the 11th meditation, which is the obligation of the brothers of the Christian schools, of teachers, to reprove and correct the faults committed by those whom they are charged to instruct. So about discipline. We're at the third point now. What ought to animate you the more to reprove and correct the faults of your disciples is the fact that if you fail in this, you yourselves will be reprehensible before God, who will punish you for your weakness and neglect in this matter. So this is going to be about the grave responsibility that those who instruct the youth have in helping them turn away from sin. Since you are substitutes for their fathers and mothers and their pastors, you are obliged to keep watch over these children as the one who is accountable for their souls. So if you do not watch over their conduct, you must realize that since these children are not able to guide themselves, you will render an account to God for the faults they commit, just as if you yourselves had committed them. This is a very sobering meditation because it really looks at the seriousness of the responsibility that we have in continuing to correct the faults of our children, of our students, because they need somebody to guide them, to help them grow. And this is specifically parents as well as teachers, that they're given to instruct them, to help them grow in virtue and to turn away from sin. And so if they're never taught, if they're just left to their own device to commit sin, then those who fail to do that have a certain responsibility on their own souls. So, it mentions, fathers, mothers, and pastors, and then teachers who are called to share in the responsibility that first mothers and fathers and pastors, as the shepherd of souls, also have. But teachers and catechists also share in this grave responsibility. So we'll have to give an account to God for what we've done. He gives some sobering examples from the scriptures as well. The high priest Eli is a very clear example, and a frightening one as well, of this truth. Because he allowed bad behavior in his children, God announced to him through Samuel that he was condemning his house for all eternity because of his sin. And because, though knowing that his sons were behaving in an unworthy manner, he did not correct them. As a result, God swore that this fault could not be expiated by sacrifices or offerings to the Lord. So great was the sin considered by God. So in the Old Testament, we have Eli the priest. During that time, priests were married, unlike today. And so he had sons that became very wicked. And so God pointed out the failure of Eli to raise them properly and then to correct them, as they grew, to avoid those sinful things. And so God stripped the priesthood away from that family and ended up giving it to Samuel instead. There was a grave consequence for that. That affected Eli as well for his lack of helping correct them. You who hold the place of fathers and pastors of souls, fear that God will act the same way toward you, if you neglect to reprove and correct your disciples when it is needed. For you would have neglected the service with which God honored you when he put you in charge of guiding these children. So, it can be a temptation to, especially for very difficult children, just to kind of give up on them and not really put any effort to correct the mistakes and basically let them get away with things. I know that certainly that can be a temptation for parents as well. But we find that certainly doesn't help anything, and it just grows, continues, and can get worse as the child grows. It's not going to correct itself automatically. They need those good guides, parents, pastors, teachers, to help them do that. He has entrusted you especially with the care of their souls, which is what God had most at heart when he made you the guides and guardians of these young children. So, what God cares about most is not so much that every child we have becomes the most intelligent. He gives every child various degrees of intellectual abilities. But every single child has the ability to become a saint, to grow in virtue and holiness. And so we need to help the child to be able to grow and begin those steps, of which later on in their life, of course, they're going to have to take the most responsibility for. But during this time when they're needing formation from those that are adults, we especially have that responsibility. Fear that your negligence may not be pardoned any more than that of the high priest Eli, if you had not been sufficiently faithful to God in your work of striving to preserve in the grace of God these souls entrusted to your guidance. So that has to be one of our main things, not only instructing them to know things of the world, the things of God, but also to be able to act in the proper way as well. There's going to be further reflections that will go specifically into reflecting more upon the account of the work that we do to God. God bless.